Celtics fans, welcome into our first ever weekday Celtics live show. We are so happy to have you along for the ride today. We got diehard C's fan, producer Jack Lauderay working behind the scenes, breaking down, helping us out for our first live show. We want to know, where are you watching from? Shout out your city down in the comments section. You know, it was so cool during the watch parties that we did for the Eastern Conference semis and for the conference finals, because we had viewers watching from all over the world. I want to know, where are y'all watching from right now? I'm sure a lot of those same viewers going to be in the chat today. Let us know, where are you watching from? Producer Jack Lauderay, explain your Boston roots here.
Yeah. Grandparents lived in Boston for ever before they moved out to Arizona. So I was born into the fandom, love the Red Sox, love the Patriots, love the Bruins, and love the Celtics. That was a disappointing game the other night, but...
Very disappointing. I was surprised that we got a Celtics team that really just didn't play with the energy they played in the three previous games, and I think that was a big reason they came back in the series. Is they played with a lot more energy in those three games they won. They did not do that in Game 7, and I thought if the Celtics lost Game 7, it was probably going to be a close game. If you told me that the winning team was going to be victorious by 19 points, I thought the Celtics would be that team. It was a very surprising result in Game 7, and now we're looking at a situation where the Celtics are going to have some tough decisions to make this offseason. They could run it back, or they could blow it up. Let me know what they should do down in the comments section. I tend to lean toward running it back. Now, you can't necessarily run it back with all the same players, right? Some guys are going to be... Yeah, sorry, my producer was crashing. I'll do that now. Will's watching from Coconut Grove, Miami, by the way. David is in Dallas, Texas. So are we, dude. Aiden Beers watching as well. Lito saying, don't blame Joe. He's actually a good coach. I'm with you. I thought Joe Mazzulla, all things considered, did a pretty good job in year one. I think that he should come back for year two. There's a lot of speculation right now about his future. We'll talk about that later on today's show. But I'm with you, Lito. I think Joe Mazzulla should be back. Was he perfect? No, he was far from perfect. But he's a rookie head coach, right? He's going to be better. Just like players get better year after year, so do coaches. Eric Spoelstra is a much better coach now than he was 20 years ago when he started. David, appreciate you watching, man. Tiger, DRXP, we were too deep in a hole. Right, and that's exactly what I said post-game the other night, is that the Celtics did not lose this series because of Jason Tatum's ankle. They lost this series because they got down in literally an impossible hole. It's never been climbed out of. No team has ever come back from 0-3. 151 tries. No team has ever done it. Adrian Rodriguez saying, Joe out. We don't need no rookies. Adrian, how about this? Ask me that on the mailbag coming up. Hashtag Celtics or Super Chat to get on the mailbag. Jude, watching from Rochester, New York. I went to college in Syracuse, not too far down the road. Aiden Beers, use hashtag Celtics. We'll get you on the mailbag. But let me know, what should the Celtics do? Run it back or blow it up? Again, I lean toward running it back. I do think you have to make a couple of moves, but you should not split up the Jays. That is not something you should do. Speaking of, who is your favorite Boston Celtics player? Let me know down in the comments section. I'm guessing it's not Brown for Adrian Rodriguez because he's saying to trade Jaylen Brown. We'll talk about that later on today's show. Jude is saying run it back. Adrian, see, I don't disagree with what you're saying there, actually. I'm in the belief that they should not trade Jaylen Brown, but also I'm not sure if Jaylen Brown is worth $295 million. That is a lot, and the new CBA is going to make it very complicated to make that happen because you also got to pay Jason Tatum. Obviously, if you pay one of those guys, it should be Jason Tatum. Thoe Zia saying, need to break up the Jays. Adrian, exactly. A lot of money, $295 million, not to mention the luxury tax, is going to be a problem. Or the Celtics can be willing to pay that, I'm not sure. Adrian, I know you're going to type in here for no. Do you want to keep Jaylen Brown in Boston? Y for yes, in for no, down in the comment section. Do you want to keep Jaylen Brown in Beantown? Jude is saying Jaylen is underrated. A lot of people are saying he's overrated right now. I think before this series, he was underrated. He did not have a good series. Tiger Drip or Tiger DRXP saying no. Jude saying yes. My name Hagen saying blow it up. It's a tough call. It really is. You can't completely blow it up, but splitting up the Jays is going to be a tough decision if that's what it comes down to. Will, what's up, Will? Saying keep Jaylen Brown. I tend to lean that way, and actually, Will, on today's video, we're going to talk about a perfect offseason for the Celtics, and believe it or not, I don't specify trading or extending Brown. I just say make a decision on Jaylen Brown. You can't go into next season with Jaylen Brown without him being extended. But you could go into next season with him being traded. So they just have to make a call one way or another. You either extend him or trade him. We'll talk about that later on. Shy Jr., use hashtag Celtics, and we'll get that on the mailbag. Hashtag Celtics or Super Chat to get that on the mailbag. Be sure to like this video if you are all about the C's. And you know, the more likes we get, the more people come across our channel, the more fun we like to have here at Celtics Today. So be sure to like the video. Let's get to 15 likes here before we start today's show. Right now we're at 9 likes. Let's get to 15 before we get into it with today's show. Bill Bass saying, Paul Pierce, favorite Celtics player. The city will do anything for him. Unfortunately, he saw a loss the other night. He was in attendance at Game 7. But like this video, if you are all about the C's, the more likes we get, the more people come across our channel. Here's what's coming up on today's show. We're going to talk about some Celtics news and rumors. Could they make a trade for Damian Lillard? That might be very interesting. Could that Celtics perfect offseason involve Damian Lillard? I'm going to break down a 5-step plan. And I'm just going to say this. The last time I did that Celtics perfect offseason video last year, after the loss to the Warriors, a lot of those things I said came true. And then hashtag Celtics or Super Chat to get on our mailbag. Do we have a weigh-in made for that? Okay, excellent. Hashtag Celtics or Super Chat to get on the mailbag. First segment coming up right now. Celtics fans, you are watching Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I am Will Scott. There is a lot to break down on today's show. Rumors have been loud after the C's lost to the Heat in the Eastern Conference Finals. What will they do this offseason? It is going to be an eventful offseason in Boston, no question about it. So be sure you subscribe to stay in the loop because, like I said, it is going to be a wild offseason. There is a lot that could go down. You want to stay informed, so be sure to hit that subscribe button below and turn on your notifications to stay in the loop with all Celtics news and rumors. Could the Celtics trade for Damian Lillard, the star point guard from the Portland Trail Blazers, Kevin O'Connor of The Ringer, who is obviously very well respected when you're talking about media members who cover the NBA. He says it's time to split up the Jays and mentions Damian Lillard as a top trade target for Boston. And the Celtics could look to mix things up after that Eastern Conference Finals loss to Miami. Dame is expected to be in trade talks this offseason, and I do believe with Portland having the number 3 pick, if Scoot Henderson is on the board, that could certainly accelerate the Damian Lillard trade talks. I don't think it makes a whole lot of sense for him and Scoot to play together. Could a swap for Jaylen Brown be in the picture here? Could that make sense for both sides? Damian Lillard is one of the best players in the league. He's getting older a little bit, but he is still highly productive in 58 games this year. He averaged 32.2 points per game, 7.3 assists per game, 4.8 rebounds per game, and shot 46.3% from the floor. Do you want to trade for Damian Lillard? Type T for trade or type P for pass. Down in the comment section, go down, chime in. It is the pinned comment. So reply to it when you get a second or when ad break comes type T for trade, or type P for pass. This is something that we are probably going to hear a lot about, the possibility of a Jaylen Brown for Damian Lillard swap, because like I said, the Blazers have the number 3 pick. I don't think Brandon Miller is a better prospect than Scoot. At the same time, I think the Hornets are going to go with Brandon Miller just because of the fit. So if Scoot Henderson is expected to be on the board at number 3 and they go with him and then trade for Jaylen Brown, could make some sense for both sides to make that swap. Damian Lillard for Jaylen Brown. Dame and Tatum as a duo would probably be the best duo in the league right away. Here's what Kevin O'Connor said about a possible trade for Damian Lillard. The top target for the C's on my list would be Damian Lillard, a born leader with elite shot creation skills. Lillard is far more potent than Brown, and he brings more offensive versatility since he can both thrive as an off-ball shooter and settle into a pass-first role when necessary. Here's the first trade idea that Kevin O'Connor throws out, and it's it's literally just a straight-up swap. Damian Lillard for Jaylen Brown. Now, like I said, depending on what the Blazers do in the draft, it could make sense for both sides. Jaylen Brown going into the last year of his contract. Here's what the Celtics starting 5 would look like after that trade. Now, I'm not sure what that would mean for Marcus Smart. I still expect him to be on this team even with the Lillard trade. So this is just a projected starting 5. Damian Lillard, Marcus Smart, Derek White, who you better keep around, Jason Tatum, and Robert Williams III. I think that's better than the starting 5 you currently have. Now, Lillard is intriguing, very intriguing, when you're talking about a trade target. But he's older than Jaylen Brown. We don't know how many prime years he has left. Jaylen Brown is arguably just entering his prime, coming off the best season of his career. He is far younger than Damian Lillard. So for me, it's a tough call when you're making a straight-up swap like that. But again, the C's, after a disappointing finish in the playoffs, it was title or bust. I said that before the season. I'm still saying that. It was a disappointing season for the Boston Celtics prior to what Giannis Antetokounmpo says. I do believe this season was a failure when you consider that you lost to an 8 seed in the Eastern Conference Finals. You got down 3-0, too big of a hole to climb out of. I thought it was banner 18 or bust for the Celtics. So the fact they didn't get it done, the fact that Jaylen Brown is going into an expiring contract year, could make some sense to shake things up if you're Brad Stevens and Boston. Now, unfortunately, the C's are not in the NBA Finals, but if you hate the Heat, you can go bet against the Heat at chatsports.com/bet. Promo code chat125 for a 125% deposit bonus through BetUS. That means if you put $100 into your account, you're going to start with $225. That is a phenomenal deal. Taking a look at the odds for Game 1. Now, Denver is a 9-point favorite here. In Game 1, the total is at 219. So if you think we're going to see a low-scoring game, maybe Miami's going to be a little bit fatigued, take the under. If you think Denver's going to roll in Game 1 at home, maybe go with the Nuggets -9. That line, a little bit too aggressive for me to take, but maybe you're feeling bold. Go and bet on the finals, chatsports.com/bet. Promo code chat125. Game 1 is on Thursday night at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Here's the second idea that Kevin O'Connor whipped up here. Celtics receive Anthony Simons and the number 3 overall pick. The Blazers receive Jaylen Brown. This is pretty interesting. Now, we just broke down 2 trade ideas. Which trade would you do? Type 1 for trade number 1, which is just a straight-up swap of Jaylen Brown and Damian Lillard. Or type number 2 for that trade idea that gets you Anthony Simons and the number 3 overall pick. Or neither, type 0 if you're not feeling either of those trade ideas. I see Clean Music Lover in the chat. He's not a fan of the trade idea that we just showed there. Type 0 if you would not do either of those trades. Now, if you get the number 3 overall pick for Jaylen Brown, and again, that second trade idea does not have you getting Damian Lillard. It has you getting Anthony Simons, the number 3 pick. Here are some potential targets there. Scoot Henderson would be a lot of fun. Brandon Miller and Amen Thompson. Now, I believe that there's really only 2 realistic targets for whoever ends up with the number 3 pick. Very possible that Portland trades that pick. Could be to Boston. I doubt it, but that's what Kevin O'Connor is speculating here in a possible Jaylen Brown trade. Scoot Henderson would probably be the guy because I think Brandon Miller's going number 2 overall to Charlotte, but it's going to be one of those two in all likelihood, Scoot Henderson or Brandon Miller. Having that pick would be really interesting, and I'm curious to know Brad Stevens' thought process. If he is, in fact, exploring the idea of trading Jaylen Brown, does he prefer a star player in return or maybe young talent and draft picks? That's the question that Brad Stevens is going to have to ask if Jaylen Brown does go on the trade block. Kevin O'Connor also said this: Stevens and the Celtics brass could open up more options for themselves if they're willing to trade Brown for younger pieces like that Simons and picks idea. Would Houston move the number 4 pick? Though adding a top pick would, in theory, mean taking a step back, it's possible that Brown's offensive production could be replaced by committee. And I actually think O'Connor makes a very good point there. The Houston Rockets have the number 4 pick. They have been linked to Jaylen Brown. And if Jaylen Brown does get traded, or at least is on the trade block, Houston could get involved because who's the new head coach in Houston? Ime Udoka, who, of course, coached Jaylen Brown last year. Those two, I've seen some rumors that they didn't have a great relationship. I've also seen rumors that they did have a great relationship. Jaylen Brown has had nothing but good things to say about his former head coach, Ime Udoka. So the Rockets, with the Udoka connection, with all the cap space that Houston has, they would be willing to pay Jaylen Brown the max, and I think they would prefer a guy like Brown over Amen Thompson or whoever else might be available at number 4 overall. But the Rockets with the number 4 pick, team to watch here when you're talking about a Jaylen Brown trade. NBA Central, speaking of the Rockets, tweeted this out. The Boston Celtics are expected to lose 3 assistant coaches to Ime Udoka's staff in Houston, per Gary Washburn. Now, this is not a huge shock because, think about it, Ime Udoka did not coach this past season. He was suspended 2 weeks before the season began. Joe Mazzulla was promoted, and of course that staff was going to stay with Joe Mazzulla through the season, but now with Udoka in Houston, it is not a huge shock. The Celtics might lose a couple of assistants to the Houston Rockets here and Ime Udoka. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. Again, we're going to have you covered with Celtics news and rumors throughout the offseason. Interesting question here. Do you want to trade for Damian Lillard, type T for trade or type P for pass? Adrian Rodriguez was a fan of trade number 1. Clean music lover, not a fan of trade number 2. Jarrett Rogers saying trade number 1. Tremaine Jones saying trade number 1. Jude is actually saying trade number 2. So maybe Jude wants Scoot Henderson. Jeff Stamps is in the chat. Oh, Jeff Stamps, it's good to see you. I think Jack Laudere's meeting Jeff for the first time. Jeff was watching every single watch party with us. We appreciate Jeff so much, watching from Louisville, Kentucky. Cheers to Trolls Under the Bridge. Jeff, what do you want to do, man? Tiger's saying T for trade. Your dad, David, is saying pass. It's an interesting question. It becomes even more interesting when you say trade Jaylen Brown for Damian Lillard. Not necessarily what I'm asking here, but I think in order to get Dame, you'd have to give up Brown. It is the pinned poll, so be sure to vote on it. Wow. 59%, now 60% are saying trade for Damian Lillard. Wow. Jeff, we appreciate you always watching, man. Jeff is saying pass. He does not want to trade for Damian Lillard, and I think I'm with you there, Jeff, if that would involve trading Jaylen Brown. If you got a question, use hashtag Celtics or Super Chat. I know Jeff's going to have some questions for us. Tremaine Jones, Zachary, Jude, be sure to ask your questions down in the live chat or Super Chat to get featured on the show. Super Chatting guarantees you a spot on our live show here. So if you want to get on the show, use hashtag Celtics or Super Chat. Over on our Dolphins channel, we say Super Chat like Mo, get on the show. Wonder if Mo will be here later. Alvin is saying trade. Do we have enough questions to get started? Okay. I see Shy Jr. asking a question. Excellent. Adrian Rodriguez, very interesting proposal there, but use hashtag Celtics to get that on the show. Hashtag Celtics, that allows producer Jack to pull your questions. Use hashtag Celtics to get on our live show. Excellent. All right, cool. All right, let's begin this mailbag. Welcome in to the Celtics Today mailbag. I am Will Scott, answering your questions live here during our live show. We appreciate everyone watching the channel. Shy Jr. with our first question. Thanks for the question. Should the Celtics keep Al Horford? Last year, I made it a priority in terms of my perfect offseason video to say bring Al back. If the Celtics want to move on, I don't think they will. I would not blame them for doing so. He was very inconsistent in the playoffs. He got a little bit better in the Heat series as that series went on. I would say yes, I think they should, but he should not have a starting role on this team. He could be a productive player off the bench, but you should not start Al Horford. He should not be getting 25 to 30 minutes a game next year. That's my take on Al. I love Al. I think he should come back. I think he deserves a ring. I would love to see him win a ring in Boston. He should not be a starter, but he should come back. Aiden Beers, trade Jaylen for Shaedon Sharpe and picks. I think I'm going to want more than that when you're talking about Jaylen Brown. I think, and again, the question that Brad Stevens has to answer here is, if you trade Jaylen Brown, do you prefer draft picks and young players, or do you prefer a superstar like Damian Lillard? That is the difficult question that Brad Stevens has to ask if Jaylen Brown does, in fact, go on the trade block. Bryce Jenkins with an interesting question. Trade Jaylen Brown for Ja Morant. Wow. Ja Morant has been in some trade rumors. He's expected to receive a pretty massive suspension here after his latest Instagram live video that featured him holding a gun. We're still waiting word on the suspension there, so there's some talk that maybe the Grizzlies are fed up, they're disappointed in him, and they want to move on. So it is possible that Ja Morant gets moved. Now, is he a good fit in Boston? I'm not sure. Obviously, he comes with some baggage. Obviously, he comes with some concerns. And if you're talking about him getting suspended, let's say 25, 30 games, I don't know if I want him because, again, I feel like next year's championship or bust for the Boston Celtics. But you'd have to imagine that if Memphis did move Ja Morant, Jaylen Brown would be of interest to them. But to answer your question, Bryce, I'm going to say no. I would rather trade for Damian Lillard, and I know Ja Morant's the younger player. I'd rather trade for Dame if you're talking about trading Jaylen Brown for a point guard. Do you want to trade for Ja Morant? Type T for trade or type P for pass. Down in the comments section, let me know. Do you want to trade for Ja Morant? Interesting question there. Jeff Stamps, one of our most loyal subscribers. We appreciate you so much, Jeff. Will, what do you think is the best trade package if Brown wants to leave Boston? Jeff, this is a phenomenal question, and you'll be happy to hear that sometime next week we're going to have a video dedicated to Jaylen Brown trade ideas. Now, we broke down on an earlier show 2 trade ideas from Kevin O'Connor. I think both are decent ideas. The first trade featured a straight-up swap, and it's very rare that trades are straight-up swaps, so I'm not sure if it's realistic, but it's a decent idea. Trading Jaylen Brown for Damian Lillard. That was his first trade idea. Again, just a straight-up swap. Might make some sense for both sides because if the Blazers want to draft Scoot Henderson, doesn't make a whole lot of sense for Dame to still be on the team. They could have Scoot and Jaylen Brown be that young star duo for years to come. Trade idea number 2, Anthony Simons, who is a good young player for the Blazers. The number 3 overall pick as well for Jaylen Brown. So Brad Stevens, again, has to ask the question, do I want a star player in return for JB, or do I want young players and draft picks? When you're talking about the best possible package for Jaylen Brown, I'm actually going to say neither when I'm talking about Kevin O'Connor. I'm going to throw this idea at you, Jeff. And Jack Lauderay is going to be very interested in this. Maybe not this exact package, but something like this. Trade Jaylen Brown to Brooklyn, who was linked to him a lot during the Kevin Durant stuff. Trade Jaylen Brown to Brooklyn for Nick Claxton, fills a big need for you at center and a defensive need, and Mikal Bridges. So trade Jaylen Brown to Brooklyn for Mikal Bridges and Nick Claxton. I think it might take a little bit more than that. You might have to throw in another player. You might have to throw in a pick. But trading Jaylen Brown to Brooklyn in a package that features Nick Claxton and Mikal Bridges, I think is the best possible package if Brown wants to leave Boston. Tiger DRXP, we appreciate you watching. Should we target anyone for the offseason for agency? Yes, the Celtics definitely have to make some moves. The question is, are they going to be aggressive or are they going to feel like they're just going to run it back? I think they got to target defense, Tiger. I really do. I really like the idea of Jeremy Grant. He's a free agent. Keep an eye on Jeremy Grant. You can go bet on the finals over at BetUS, and if you go to chatsports.com/bet and use promo code CHAT125, you are going to get a 125% deposit bonus. That means if you put $100 into your account, you are going to start with $225 in your account. It is a phenomenal deal. Go and take advantage of it. Chatsports.com/bet with that promo code. Here are the odds for Finals MVP. So Nikola Jokic, minus 350. Jimmy Butler, plus 325. Who do you think is going to win Finals MVP? Interesting. I feel like, and this is interesting, I feel like a dark horse for this is Caleb Martin. And he's like plus 3,000. So if you want to go make some dough, I think I'm going to Mexico this summer. If I bet on Caleb Martin, that's going to pay for the entire trip. But those are the top two. Nikola at minus 350, Jimmy at plus 325. Go and place your bets on the finals. Chatsports.com/bet, promo code CHAT125. Oh my God, it's a Chat Sports legend watching live. We appreciate Crimsdad. Is Jaylen Brown just another Julius Randle who performs like a star during the season but poorly in the playoffs? I wish we could get Marshall Green in here. I wish we could go get Marshall Green in here. I think he's doing a show right now. I'll say this, Crimsdad. Jaylen Brown was phenomenal in the postseason last year, and he was great in the finals. He was actually far better than Jason Tatum was against the Golden State Warriors in the finals last year. So I'm not going to go that far yet. But there's certainly some comparisons to Jaylen Brown, Julius Randle, and I was watching Marshall Green do his Knicks show yesterday. He was comparing these two players. His producer Jack Lauderay's in my ear and saying it's the Marshall Green propaganda for our Celtics viewers that don't watch the Knicks Now show. Marshall Green is the host of that. That's why we're saying Marshall Green here. But yeah, you can certainly make that argument, Crimsdad. Jaylen Brown was not good in the postseason. He even made the comment after Monday's loss, that he failed this team this postseason. Dalton Lyles, Jaylen Brown to the Rockets. Yeah, the Rockets are certainly a team that we have heard linked to Jaylen Brown, mainly because of the Ime Udoka connection. I would put them right up there with any other team that might trade for Jaylen Brown. I think the top three contenders are the Atlanta Hawks, the Portland Trail Blazers, could see the Dame swap there, and the Houston Rockets. Those are my top three. Now, will Jaylen Brown be on the Celtics next year? Type Y for yes or N for no down in the comment section. Will Jaylen Brown be on the Celtics next year? I'm going to say yes. I do think they're going to keep him around, but it's certainly an interesting question that we're going to be asking this offseason. So be sure to subscribe to the channel because we got you covered on all things Celtics all the time. Hit that subscribe button below for all the latest Celtics news and rumors. Aiden McLean, Jaylen for Ant and Nas. Woo! Fire me up, Aiden. Jeff, you asked about the best possible package. That'd be phenomenal. I'll say this. There is zero chance that they would trade Anthony Edwards. It's just not going to happen. I love Anthony Edwards. In fact, when you're talking about guys that are not Celtics, he's probably a top three favorite player outside of Boston in the league for me. Love Anthony Edwards. Think he's just a lot of fun to watch, fun personality. Would love to have him in Boston, but I don't think they would trade him. I would put Ant on the same level as Jaylen Brown, honestly. So I don't even know if a straight-up swap would get that done. But Naz Reid, I love Naz Reid. I was saying during the deadline the Celtics should trade for Naz. They didn't. He would have been nice to have. He's named to watch this offseason, though. But in terms of getting Anthony Edwards, I just don't think that's going to happen, Aiden, unfortunately. Paul, how's it going, man? Let's concentrate on a big center that can play in a point forward or make Smart the point guard and get a shooting guard that's a great shooter. I definitely think that the Celtics need to add some shooting, Paul. There's no question about that. Bring back Derek White. I read some article that was like, oh, they might move on from one of Brogdon, White, or Smart. I don't think that guy should be Derek White. He was phenomenal. He's the reason he got to a Game 7. But, yeah, you're right. I think the Celtics could use another shooter off the bench. Look out for Doug McDermott as a possible target in free agency. Kevin Jones saying, bring back Grant Williams. It's one of those things, Kevin, that I'm not going to have a problem with it either way. They don't bring him back, I would understand. If they bring him back, I'd be happy. But if they do not bring him back, and there was a lot of playoff games where he wasn't even in the rotation, I certainly would understand it. And let's say he gets, I don't know, I don't think he'll get this much, but let's say he gets like 17, 18 mil in offer sheet. I don't think the Celtics are going to match that. So it depends on the cost for me. I'm not willing to overpay for Grant Williams. Do you want to bring back Grant Williams? Chime in down in the comment section. Type B for bring back or type D for don't down in the comment section. B&A West, how's it going? 3-team trade idea. Celtics get Anthony Simons and OG Anunoby. Blazers get Brown. Raptors get 3rd overall pick. The Celtics would make out like bandits here if this happened. Obviously, the Blazers would be getting the best player in this deal, but the Celtics would be getting 2 starters in Anthony Simons and OG Anunoby. I love OG Anunoby. I see Adrian in our live chat. I don't think he's a fan of this trade. I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. I'm trying to think who would say no. I think it would be I don't know if any team would say no, because the Raptors might look to trade Anunoby anyway. B&A West, I'm gonna be honest with you. This is a pretty solid trade idea. If one team says no, it might be the Celtics, because maybe the Celtics want a more established superstar for Jaylen Brown. But I might be in the minority here when I say this. I think this is a decent deal for the Celtics. I really do. Joseph Branson saying we need to move on from Joe Mazzulla. I disagree. I don't think they should, because Joe Mazzulla and Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown both said this exact same thing. He was in a difficult position getting promoted to head coach 2 days before training camp. He was thrown into the situation he didn't expect to be in. The Celtics had one of the best offenses in the league. They were second in the East. They made the Eastern Conference Finals. They were one game away from the NBA Finals. I just don't think you can move on from Joe Mazzulla. I think you got to run it back with Joe. Will Jaylen Brown, I should say, be on the Celtics next year? Why free as in for no? A lot of people in the chat, Jack, didn't like that trade idea. I didn't hate it. Anthony Simons is good. OG Anunoby's really good. John Edward Kruger, another loyal subscriber, wants Jaylen Brown to stay in Boston. So does Xavier Curry. They both want Jaylen Brown to remain with the C's here. Jeff Stamps saying no. Jaylen Brown is not going to be on the Celtics. Shai Jr., not a bad point. Great shooter, though. Add some offense. Tremaine Jones. Celtics should get Marcus Smart. Should Marcus Smart get traded? We'll answer that in our next mailbag, Tremaine Jones. How about that? Be sure to ask that on our community page, because I don't know if we're going live next week. Or local Ryan, I don't know. What if they get Scoot Henderson? Very possible. If you're watching and not subscribed, let's change that. Hit the subscribe button below if you want the latest Celtics news and rumors. We got one final segment coming up on today's show. Producer Jack, you're a big Celtics fan. What do you think a perfect Celtics offseason would be? Because that's our next segment.
I think priority number one is extending Jaylen Brown. I'm on the keep Jaylen Brown. I think the Jays are one of the best duos in the NBA. I'm not saying the best. I'm realistic, but they're up there as one of the best duos in the NBA. It's a lot of money, but for two all-NBA superstars, I extend Jaylen Brown. I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing for me. You got to figure out the coaching staff with the 3 reported assistants leaving. And I think you need better depth. I think the depth is okay. I don't think you had a really great three-point shooter. Usually it was like you were relying on Derek White or like Al Horford because Tatum was abysmal from behind the arc in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think you need to find like a better three-point shooter, and then you can never have too many big men because Robert Williams is just injury-prone all the time.
Right, and Al's old, so you need another big man. There's no question about it. Our next segment is going to be the perfect Celtics offseason. Last year, top of my priority list was trading for Malcolm Brogdon. They did that. What is at the top of my list this year? You're about to find out. What would a perfect offseason for the Boston Celtics look like? I am Will Scott. Welcome to Celtics Today. We're going to answer that question on today's show after the Celtics lost in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals. There's a lot of questions about what the C's are going to do this offseason. They could make some massive changes. Be sure to subscribe because we're going to have you covered during the offseason with Celtics content, multiple videos per week, live shows as well. If the Celtics make a big move, we'll go live. Be sure to subscribe, youtube.com/CelticsTV. So on today's show, I'm going to break down a 5-step plan for a perfect Celtics offseason. This basketball team has to improve if they want to be raising banner 18 after the conclusion of next season. I want to hear from y'all down in the comments. What should be a priority for the Celtics this offseason? Let me know what you think down in the comment section. Number 1 on my list, make a decision on Jaylen Brown. And what I mean by that is don't go into next season with Jaylen Brown not extended or not traded. You have to either trade him or extend him. I'm not okay with going in next season without having made up your mind on Jaylen Brown. He is eligible for a 5-year, $295 million contract extension ahead of the last year of his contract. He is slated to be an unrestricted free agent after next season. So either trade him because you don't want to go into next season and lose him after next season, or extend him, lock him up, make sure the 2 J's do not split up. That is the decision that Brad Stevens has to make. Extend Brown or move on from Jaylen Brown. And that decision should be made this offseason. Now, it's going to be pricey to keep Jaylen Brown in Boston. Here's the extension numbers that he is eligible for because he made second-team All-NBA. $50 million in 2024-2025. The next year, $54 million. After that, $58 million, $62 million, and $66 million. That's a lot of bread. Here's what Jaylen Brown did this past season. It was the best season of his career. Yes, he was not good in the postseason, not good against the Heat, not good in Game 7, but when you're talking about the regular season, he was really good. 26.6 points per game, 3.5 assists per game, 6.9 rebounds per game, 49.1% from the floor, 33.5% from 3. In my opinion, it should be an easy call for Brad Stevens in Boston. You go to Jaylen Brown, you offer him that extension that he is eligible for. If he says no, I'm not signing it. And I don't know who in their right mind would turn down that amount of money because I don't think Jaylen Brown's going to get that much in free agency next year. But if he says no to sign that extension, then you trade him, no hesitation, because if he does not sign that extension, then I guess he does not want to be in Boston. The Celtics have to accept that, move on, try to get a good package. But again, number 1 on the priority list, make a call on Jaylen Brown one way or another. What should the Celtics do with Jaylen Brown? Type E for extend or type T for trade down in the comment section. It is the pinned comment on today's video. So when ad break comes, go down, chime in. E for extend, T for trade. Number 2, think defense. The Celtics have got to get better defensively this offseason. Malcolm Brogdon agrees. Here's what he said after the Game 7 loss the other night. Defense, it was the issue this year. This was a team last year that prided themselves on defense. Defense was their calling card, and then this year, offense was our calling card. And I don't think you win championships with a better offense than you have defense. Malcolm Brogdon is right. The Celtics had the number one defense in the league last year. They did not have the number one defense in the league this year, and they did not look like a top-tier defense down the stretch in the second half of the season and also in the playoffs. So they got to get better defensively because Brogdon is right. Defense wins championships, and there's two guys I'm thinking of here when you're talking about improving defensively, and these guys get it done on both ends, especially on defense. Jeremy Grant could be a free agency pickup. Love Jeremy Grant. Been following him for a long time. Went to my alma mater, Syracuse University. He's very good. And then Dorian Finney-Smith. He could be a trade target. He was traded from the Mavericks to the Brooklyn Nets at the deadline. I don't know if Brooklyn's going to look to move him, but he's one of the best defensive players in the league. Look at what happened in the Mavs defensively when Dorian Finney-Smith left town. One of those guys would be perfect. I think they would have a big role on this team. I don't know about a starting role, but they would certainly be involved and have a significant impact on the Celtics team. And like Brogdon said, you got to get better defensively. They would certainly do that. I also think you need a big man because you look at Al Horford, you look at Robert Williams. Al Horford is old, and Robert Williams injury prone. You cannot rely on those two guys going into next year. I love Rob. I mean, look at what happened every time he got an alley-oop in the Eastern Conference Finals. I mean, the guy is a machine when he's healthy, but I don't think you can rely on him to stay healthy the full year. And then Al Horford's just old. I don't think that you can go into next season with Al Horford in the starting rotation. Taking a look at some possible free agent targets. Now, Jakob Poeltl, he's a guy we talked about a lot at the deadline. In fact, it was reported that the Celtics did offer a package for Jakob Poeltl at the deadline that included Peyton Pritchard. That package was declined. He ended up getting traded to the Toronto Raptors, I should say. Nikola Vucevic, good chance that they work out a deal in Chicago. That's been the report. But he's available. Brook Lopez in Brooklyn. Naz Reid in Minnesota. And then Thomas Bryant with the Denver Nuggets. He was traded from the Lakers to the Nuggets. He is a name to watch here as well. You can go get a Jason Tatum shirt at chatsports.com/Tatum. Pretty cool shirt there. Go and pick it up. Support number 0 by getting a shirt. chatsports.com/Tatum. That link is in the comments section and the description of today's video. chatsports.com/Tatum. Just a correction. The graphic said I should say Brook Lopez played for Brooklyn, former net, now plays with the Milwaukee Bucks, but he's a free agent. Number 4, add another shooter. I do believe the Celtics need more shooters. You see that guy on the screen, Seth Curry. Maybe he's an option. He's on my short list here of free agent targets. Maybe a shooter off the bench that you add in free agency. Doug McDermott, I really like. He's someone else we talked a lot about at the trade deadline. Dante DiVincenzo had a decent year in Golden State. Jordan Clarkson and Max Strus from the Miami Heat, a name to watch there. I don't know if you can afford Strus, though. He's probably going to get paid. Doug McDermott might be a more realistic target. Here's what he did in San Antonio this past season. 10.2 points per game, 2.2 rebounds per game. 45.7% from the floor, 41.3% from three. He would have been nice to have in Game 7 when you could not hit the side of a barn shooting the basketball. Which shooter do you want to add? Let me know down in the comments section. I would say Doug McDermott, but what say you? Let me know down in the comments section. Number 5, I think you got to move on from one of your point guards, whether that's Marcus Smart, Malcolm Brogdon, one of those two guys. I do not expect both of those guys to be on the team next year. So you got to make the call. Do you want to keep really the heart and soul of that team, the guy that's been with your team the longest in Marcus Smart, or Malcolm Brogdon, the 6th man of the year? Before I get into my thoughts, I want to ask you, because this is a tough call. One has to go. One has to go. Marcus Smart or Malcolm Brogdon? Type S for Smart or type B for Brogdon down in the comments section. If you had to let go of one of these guys, Who would it be? Let me know down in the comments section. I'm kind of indifferent there, but I'm just going to throw out an idea. Trade Marcus Smart to Brooklyn in a package for Nick Claxton or Dorian Finney-Smith, one of those guys, and then sign Fred VanVleet in free agency, who's one of the best available free agents. Taking a look at the numbers here, 19.3 points per game, 7.2 assists per game, 4.1 rebounds per game, 39.3% from the floor. Maybe he's not as good as Smart defensively, but he is still really good defensively, and he is better than Smart offensively. I don't think there's any question about that. He is a better offensive player than Marcus Smart. Sometimes Smart is a liability shooting the basketball. I do believe that Fred VanVleet, if you do move on from Smart or Brogdon, could be a target here for the Celtics in free agency. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/Celtics TV. We're going to continue to have you guys covered with Celtics news and rumors. One has to go. Who's it going to be? Smart or Brogdon? Type S for Smart or type B for Brogdon. Let me know down in the comments section. I'm going to be in the minority here. I'm going to say Smart. I love Marcus Smart, but I just don't know. I think if you could include him in a trade package to see, Rondo Boston agrees with me. He says Smart. And look, some people might say Brogdon because he wasn't good in the Eastern Conference Finals, but he also was hurt. I mean, I'm not going to blame Brogdon for his performance in the Eastern Conference Finals. He was very hurt with the forearm. Mike saying Smart has way more value to the season than he does to other teams. You're right about that. You are very right about that, Mike. So would other teams be interested in trading for him? I'm not sure. Paul, he was unproductive because he was hurt. But I hear you. I don't blame you for being frustrated about his performance in the Eastern Conference Finals. Paul is saying Brogdon. Again, I don't expect the Celtics to have both of these guys back. I feel like they're going to look to mix things up at the point guard position. Fred VanVleet could be a name to watch. Obviously, Dame Lillard a name to watch as well. But let me know down in the comments section. I'll look that up, John Edward. I saw him on a list of available free agents for this year, but I'll confirm that. I will confirm. What do you think? How would you answer this question, Producer Jack?
It's a tough one, honestly. Is Malcolm Brogdon won Sixth Man of the Year, but Marcus Smart is so much more valuable in other ways. He's a leader. He's locked down on defense. When we thought a lot about their defensive identity last year, a lot of it was Marcus Smart just being a pest to the guards that they were playing. Oh, God.
Paul, you're right. He is a team player. He brings the energy. It's a tough call. It's a very tough call. I'll say this, though. Brogdon's the Sixth Man of the Year. I feel like he's tougher to replace off the bench than Smart is in the starting rotation. If you replace Marcus Smart with Fred VanVleet, you get better as a basketball team, period. And if you turn Marcus Smart into Nick Claxton or Dorian Finney-Smith, and then you add Fred VanVleet, that makes you much better as a basketball team.
Yeah, that's all hypothetical.
It is all hypothetical.
We're just thinking, oh, you got to get rid of one. Like if we know the corresponding moves they'll make, and if that does make the team substantially better, then of course, you'll make that move. But just hypothetically, one has to go. It's a lot harder not knowing what they could get for him or what corresponding moves they would make after they get rid of him. It's tough. It's tough, man. It's really tough.
Well, Mike, you'd have Fred VanVleet initiating the action here in my idea. If you're all about the C's, this channel is for you. Be sure to subscribe. Don't think we're going to be able to go live next week, maybe the week after. But either way, we're going to have you covered with Celtics news and rumors throughout the offseason. Thanks to everybody for tuning in to our first Celtics live show.